Alright, so we need to install Android Studio, which is the official IDE to develop Android applications. Go to Google and type Android Studio as such, and then I think the second hit or so should be where you should be going to download Android Studio. And then you find https developer.android.com, this one here, click on that, and that should take us here, right? Once we're here, we can go around and read about Android Studio and all the great things that Android Studio provides to developers and so forth. So it's pretty, I think it's a good idea to take the time to read more about Android Studio, especially if you're getting serious about Android development. It's come up here and click download Android Studio as such. And of course, we'll have to read some terms and conditions just to make sure we are on the same page with the Google, of course. And then at the bottom, we can say I've read everything. Now here we have two options. If you are a Mac with Apple chip, of course, you're going to go ahead and click and install this option. Otherwise, if you have Intel chip, you go this option. I happen to be on Intel, so I'm going to click on Intel. If you don't know which Mac you are using, I would just do a quick search and look on your Mac to see if you have an Apple chip. Okay, so I have an older Mac, so Intel chip, that's what will work for me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click, and we'll start the download process. It may take a little while, so just wait until that is done, and we'll proceed. Once all it's downloaded, you can just double click. Okay, so all we have to do is just take this Android Studio here and drop into your applications as such. That'll take a little bit. Okay, after a few seconds, you'll see that we're all good. All is installed. So what do we need to do now? On Mac, of course, we can just say Command Space and start typing in Android Studio as such. Now, you will see that I do have, of course, two Android Studio and another one here. Just ignore everything else. But the reason why I have two is because I already had Android Studio, so I'm just re-recording this so that you have the opportunity to see how to download and install Android Studio. So I'm going to pick this one here, which is the one that we just created or we just installed and set up. So what you need to do, of course, is just double click and it will start verifying everything, making sure all is good. So this should happen. Android Studio is an app you download from the internet. You want to make sure that we are aware that this could also be a malware, but we know that it's trusted. So I'm going to say open anyway. And there we go. So now it is starting. Android Studio at this point is called Arctic Fox. So before all of that, you actually go through this process of configuring things, Android Studio, and you just go through that process. Just follow the screen. You can choose standard or custom, and you can select a UI theme if you want it dark or light. You can also then start verifying settings, so to install everything that you need. And once you're done, then you can go ahead and back and start the project. Okay? So this is my settings, of course, and of course you can customize Android Studio to your liking. If you can customize, I have the accessibility IDE font larger, so that way you can actually see as I code, right? The bigger the font, since I'm recording this course, it's better for you to be able to see. Okay, so you can change, of course, the editor fonts, the IDE fonts, and so forth. So a lot of things here, and you can also add plugins and can learn more about Android Studio and so forth. Okay, so back to our projects. Here you can go ahead and just start a new project. So we're going to go ahead and create a new project, and voila. So now we have an option to start a new project. So as you see here, we have different paths we can take. What we're interested in is the empty compose activity, right? Because it's all about compose. And next I'm going to have to add a name. Okay, so my first compose, whatever name you want. The location, that's fine, and also the package name. Whatever you have, you're probably going to have the example that my first compose, or whichever name you added at the top here for your application. Doesn't matter. And make sure that the language is Kotlin, because that's what we need. And minimum SDK, in this case, 28, that's totally fine. All right, I'm going to go ahead and say finish. Okay, and now it's going to go ahead and provision our new application, new project, I should say. And because it's the first time, this may take a few minutes, so just be patient and wait. All right, so right away you can see in our assistant here, right, we can actually close that down. It tells us a little bit about Arctic Fox, okay, what it's all about and so forth. So take time to read. If you want to read that on the browser, you can do so by clicking here. So for now, I'm just going to close it down a little bit. So now it's indexing, Gradle is working in the back end, and it may take a little bit. Again, keep in mind the colors that you see here on my editor may be different than yours because of my settings that I have transported from previous installs and so forth. So don't worry too much if it doesn't look exactly as mine, right? As long as the Android Studio itself looks how it looks out of the box, that's totally fine. So we're waiting for Gradle to finish its syncing process. It may take a little bit. Again, just relax and we'll wait until it's all done. Okay, once all is done, let's see. You can see we have our project. It's created. You can also toggle that like this to have more space. And now I'm actually running to see if we can see some sort of a preview to the right here, right? Because we have code. Okay, this is compose code. Now Gradle at the bottom here, you can see Gradle is building and running, and hopefully soon we can see something here. And voila. Okay, it's building, still rendering slowly. But after a few attempts, you can see, there we go. You can click this button here to make it a little bit bigger, 100%. We can make it even bigger. You can see we have Hello World is showing in our compose preview. Okay, so this is success. As you can see, it's real good. All right. So as you can see, you should have your Android Studio set up at this point. It should all be good. And the other thing we would want to do, of course, is to create an emulator because we want to use that to test our apps. So it's very simple. What you need to do, you could go to the top here where it says AVD Manager, click. And as you can see, for me, I do have a few virtual devices already. But in your case, if this is your first time, you've never installed Android Studio, you should see nothing here. Okay, so what you need to do is click on Create Virtual Device, like such, and pick whatever you want. Okay, I would always recommend to pick something that has Play Store icon here because a lot of dependencies, a lot of libraries that we may need in the future are part of the Play Store library. So it's just a good thing to be aware of. So I'm going to pick Pixel 4, or I can pick something else, but Pixel 4 is fine. I'm going to say next. And in this case here, for your case, you may not have R or Q, depending on which API level we want to attach this emulator with. You will have to download it, right? So in this case here, if R, for instance, shows download, you will have to click download so that that is downloaded internally. Then we're going to be able to create that image, to create that emulator. Okay? So in this case, 30 is fine. I have it downloaded already. I'm just going to say next. And I can change the name here, new one or whatever you want, okay? Because I'm changing this name because I already have Pixel 4 API 30 installed already, okay? And of course I use automatic. It's usually the one that is selected. That's fine. And everything else should be fine. And what you need to do then is just say finish. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to create a new one, but it should be good. If you say finish, it will take a few moments to create your new emulator, okay? And once you're done, then you will see that it will be shown here as well. All right, very good. And once you have that, it's very simple because it's going to show you here as one of the available devices. And then you can just go ahead and click run. It'll take a few moments. Okay, let's go to AVD. I think it wants us to pick one. It's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and pick that one. Okay, now it says here connecting to the emulator. And just get rid of here. Or get out of there. And we'll take a few moments again because it's rebooting a new emulator. It's equivalent of starting a new phone, so it may take a little bit. After a few moments, you can see that we have successfully installed our Compose Android app here into our emulator. Okay, so this is really good. And of course, as you can see here, I have some issues, but that's fine. It just tells us there's a warning because this Pixel 2 Nougat is probably lower API level than it needs to be. So what happened is that it went and got the Pixel 4 API 30, which is the minimum API level that it's needed in order to run Compose applications in this case. Okay, so this is good, which is the API level set up to run this app. So that is all good because Android Studio is smart enough to go and pick up the correct emulator to run this app. Okay, so there we go. We should be good at this point, ready to go. All right, very well. Let's get to it.